This video is brought to you by catbeast.com. Design your own custom snapbacks and hats.
Welcome back everybody to kenanK TV. In today's video, let us take a look at the main event for UFC 246 between Conor McGregor and Cowboy Donald Cerrone. However, in this video, I would like to focus a bit more on why Conor McGregor could defeat Cowboy Cerrone. I will also make another video where I talk about Cowboy Cerrone defeating Conor, so be sure to subscribe and stay notified for that video. But before we start, this video has been sponsored by catbeast.com. If you guys are interested in creating and designing your own custom embroidered hats, then be sure to check out catbeast.com with the link in the description below. The first reason that we have to take into consideration is Conor McGregor's motivation going into this fight. Conor can't afford to half-ass this fight and not respect his opponent. Against Khabib Nurmagomedov, he had a very bad representation of what the skills that Khabib possessed were totally like. He thought that he was going in there and fighting a stocky wrestler with an overhand. Unfortunately for him, it was a lot more than that. So going into a fight with Cowboy Donald Cerrone, I believe that first of all, his mindset is in the right place. Especially after this horrible year that he had in 2019, he did not fight, a lot of bad things happened to him outside of the octagon, and he really does have many things to prove. He's not a fighter that is completely done, that is his mindset. So going into this fight, I believe he will be in the very best mindset that he can be in. And this ties into the second reason as to why Conor McGregor could defeat Cerrone. He will be very aware of the game plan that he has, and he will be very attentive to it. And also he will be very aware and attentive to the strengths of Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Now these strengths, I will be talking about them a lot more in detail in the video where I talk about Cowboy Cerrone defeating Conor McGregor. So be sure to subscribe and stay notified for that video. However, in a nutshell, the strengths of Cowboy Cerrone are obviously going to be his grappling and predominantly his kicking and his size. But what does this really all mean for Conor McGregor's approach to this fight? Now, I don't believe that Conor McGregor will be fighting out of character. I don't think that he will present anything new that is going to be revolutionary. He will be the same old Conor McGregor who will pressure his opponent in this fight, which is obviously Cowboy Cerrone. However, Cowboy has always had a pretty hard time fighting off of the back foot, and he doesn't really take pressure all too well. We saw this in the RDA fights, Jorge Masvidal fights, Darren Till fight, and essentially all the fights where he was not really able to deal well against a pressure fighter. And this also ties in nicely with the fourth reason, is the fact that Conor McGregor is a southpaw fighter. In a southpaw versus orthodox fight, Conor is a lot more experienced and a lot more accustomed to that type of a fight. However, when it comes to Cerrone, not so much. Now, what does this all really mean? When you take a look at the basis of this fight, we will see that it'll always come down to the boxing. In my opinion, if you take a look at the boxing fundamentals, the jab is just boxing 101. And if you cannot really establish your jab, you're not really going to be establishing good boxing range. Now, other than him being able to kick Conor McGregor, I believe that the pressure and forward movement will be taking care of that kicking game in itself. So this means that Cowboy Cerrone has to really rely on his boxing fundamentals. However, because Conor is a southpaw fighter, he will be mirroring Cowboy Cerrone's jab, and it will most likely come down to the fact that Conor McGregor will be having a way better jab placement and will be having a way better jab hand positioning. He will be a lot more dominant when it comes to his jab hand, and this will neutralize Cowboy Cerrone's jab. This will take it away, and this will make it so that Conor McGregor has one less weapon to worry about from Cerrone's side. Now, when you take a look at Cowboy Cerrone, he's a fighter that when it comes to his boxing fundamentals, he does not utilize his boxing and strike very long. He's a fighter that has pretty short punches and very snappy punches at that, which carry a lot of power but not that much range. So when Conor McGregor is going to be coming forward, he only really has to worry about the kicking game. and I will go a bit more in detail to the kicking game and how Conor McGregor can deal with it later down in this video. However, assuming Conor McGregor gets past that, and when he will, he only has to worry about a very limited amount of range that Cowboy Donald Cerrone has in his boxing. This means that at that range, Conor McGregor will be the more dominant fighter. He will be essentially the winner of that boxing range. Now, this will enable Conor to have better outside foot placement, thus controlling the motion of their movement. If Conor can have the control of Donald Cerrone's jab hand and also place his foot on the outside, Conor is essentially in control of the entirety of Cowboy Cerrone's left side. Now, once Conor is at this stage and became the ring general by taking away the jab hand and having the foot on the outside, this will leave Cerrone with only his right hand to throw. And when it comes to Cerrone, he's a fighter that likes to kind of essentially lunge into his strike, and with that is precisely what Conor McGregor likes to do and is so phenomenal at. We saw it against Eddie Alvarez, we saw it against Jose Aldo, we saw it against Ivan Butchinger. When you as an orthodox fighter throw that right hand without any setup, Conor will simply slip to the left and then come back with his own left. And as we know, Conor is very powerful with his left hand shot. If we're going to give him the accuracy, the speed, and the timing, that punch is just all that he needs to end off Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Now, why is this the case? Now, if you're just going to take a look at any southpaw versus orthodox fighter, because they both mirror their stances, both the southpaw and the orthodox fighter, their straight punch will have to travel a greater distance. Now, because of this greater distance, it will become a punch that is a lot more telegraphed. However, a lot more powerful. And in this matchup, I believe that Conor McGregor has the better reflexes, has the youth advantage on his side, has a speed advantage from the get-go in my opinion anyway, thus making him pretty likely to land that shot in this matchup as well. Add on top that Donald Cerrone kind of lunges into his right straights all the time, this will really play in his favor a lot more. If Cowboy can walk into the shot as Conor is also slipping and coming back in with the counter, this will be just double impact and a lot more fatal. And these are basic southpaw tactics Conor McGregor obviously has mastered. Now, when you take a look at Cowboy Cerrone's best attributes or the moments where he fights the best in, he's very good at the medium to long range. When he can establish his jab and start kicking very well, that is essentially where Cowboy Cerrone is at his very peak. And for Conor McGregor to be at that distance is pretty unlikely. When is the last time you saw Conor McGregor have a medium range right in the middle of the octagon chess match? You don't really see that. He's always coming forward and he's always in your face. And that is exactly what he will do against Cerrone. So he won't be really giving him the distance for Cerrone to start kicking and setting up his beautiful and really masterful chain of combinations. And Conor is very unpredictable in the way that he moves and approaches the opponent. Either he's in the mode where he's out of the kicking range even, and then before you know it, he's in your face and already closing in the distance. So when it comes to Cerrone, the best moments that he has to start utilizing his kicks are immediately from the opening of the fight, and he will have to immediately start, bringing that leg up, bring that knee up, and start feinting and teasing the kick towards Conor McGregor. If he can do that, then he can start to establish his own range a lot better. However, if Conor McGregor just comes forward running and opens up with a spinning back kick to the body, well, that will make it pretty unlikely for Cerrone to have any sort of success doing that. So if Conor comes forward and is in the full offense mode, I think that distance will be on his side as well. I think he will be the ring general. But now moving over to the sixth reason in this video, Cowboy Cerrone, he does not really have the most fluid of head movement. He's a pretty stationary target. He's a very stand up straight and stiff type of a guy. And I do believe that that is not really going to be the most effective way to approach somebody like Conor McGregor, who is always going to be looking for the openings and best pathways to land his signature left-hand shot. If you're going to be able to move your head and always be moving, then that is obviously going to be a lot more problematic for Conor. But if the best defense that you have in terms of keeping the distance is going to be lifting your knee or body kicks, I believe once Conor McGregor is able to get past that, you will have to start moving your head. And we have seen that throughout his entire career. That is not really the best aspect of his game. He's a very traditional Muay Thai type of a fighter. He stands up straight, guard high, and that is really what is so signature about Cerrone's fighting style. But it will be very costly against a very accurate, powerful, and fast southpaw like Conor McGregor himself. Number 7 is age. Age is something that obviously Conor McGregor has on his side. Conor is virtually in the prime of his career, even though that he has not been active to really maximize his potential in his prime. I believe that still being able to be about 31 years old is really going to be playing in your favor. Compare that to Cerrone, who has had 50 fights in MMA, 50 fights. That is not a light feat. This will really take its toll on your body. Some will say, well, he's only 36 years old, but he's not really 36 years old for a fighter who is just 36 years old, if you know what I mean, right? He's a lot more older in fight years than what you would normally suggest a 36-year-old man to be like. Now, what does this mean? Well, this will mean that Cerrone will be a lot more susceptible to damage. He will be a lot more easily hurt, right? His reflexes, they're going to be slower. Overall, physically, his punch output, it will be slower. And I believe that just physically, he will be a lot more deteriorated and not really his optimal self. We're not really going to be expecting prime Donald Cowboy Cerrone now, are we? So keeping that in mind, this is an advantage, a serious advantage that Conor McGregor has on his side. At number 8, we really have to go ahead and focus our attention on the ground game. In the grappling department, there is no question that Cowboy Cerrone is just a better fighter. And you really have to respect that. If you don't, you're going to get yourself in a position where all of a sudden Cowboy Cerrone is snatching your arm. Now, fortunately for Conor McGregor, Cerrone is not a type of a fighter that will come forward, rush forward and shoot for a double leg and dive in and just go head first, right? Because he's just not like that. The openings that he will take advantage of, Cerrone that is, to start to initiate a grappling match and start to go ahead and shoot for a takedown is when he's able to go ahead and time the opponent as they're coming forward, as they're overcommitting for a punch. For example, against Darren Till, he was able to take down Darren Till as Darren Till was overcommitting on his shots and really losing the basis of his feet, right? He was not really strong on his feet anymore. He was off balance. And because of that, Cerrone had easily taken him down. So Cerrone's abilities to go ahead and time a takedown as the opponent is coming forward is very high. So Conor has to be very aware of this. And if he's not and starts to overcommit on punches and overthrow like he did against Nate and Khabib, that is a big problem for him. However, assuming that he's pretty calm and doesn't overthrow in this matchup, I believe that him sticking to his basic, feints and setups and 1-2s will really be very hard for Cerrone to counter essentially, right? I don't think that is going to be that big of an opening for him to exploit and take Conor down with. However, a way for him to take Conor down is obviously going to be by tying him up. In the clinch, we haven't really seen that much clinch work from Conor. Against Khabib, we saw it a little bit and he somewhat really did okay, but Khabib was obviously going to be the way stronger and better skilled fighter in that department. We'll just have to wait and see how Cerrone is going to be dealing against Conor McGregor in the clinch, but I would have to assume that he's going to be having an advantage in that department as well. Now, whether or not he's going to be able to take Conor down from the clinch, we'll just have to wait and see. But one thing is for certain, if Conor McGregor can, put the pressure on Cerrone and keep Cerrone with his back up against the cage and stay patient and not overcommit on punches, I see Conor McGregor having a lot of success stuffing and getting out of the way if Cowboy Cerrone were to shoot in on Conor. I think that is really going to be the best way for him to defend Cerrone's wrestling in this matchup. At number 9, this is really something that is, in my opinion, very underlooked in this matchup, is the body work. Conor is a very good body striker. I don't think he gets enough credit for being that good in that department. Because Cerrone really stands up tall with his back straight and doesn't really move his head all too much and has a pretty high guard, that leaves a lot of body work for Conor McGregor to exploit. We've seen against Diego Brandao, that was really the finishing touch that put Diego out. It wasn't really the left hand that, was just the end all be all from that sequence, right? From that finish. It was first the body shot that set everything up. And then he was able to go in there and land the left straight as he was able to bring Diego Brandao's guard low. And that was just the opening for him that he needed to land his left hand. Or his spinning back kick to the body, or his hooks to the body, right? These are all things that, in my opinion, not a lot of people talk about. But I do believe that in this matchup, it will be very much so present. For example, against Khabib, he was able to throw, quite a few left hands to the body, or even teep kicks to the body. He was able to go ahead and kick Khabib to the body. He was very much so daring of that in that type of a matchup. So why wouldn't he be against Cerrone, right? I think that will be a kick that will be very much so present. Along with the spinning back kick to the body, I believe Conor, he has been very much so stripped of his kicking game because he has been fighting people with very high grappling threats, and I do believe that fighting somebody like Cerrone will really just enable him to go ahead and throw a lot more kicks. So I believe that we should be able to see a lot more kicks from Conor in this matchup as well. So coming in at number 10, the final reason is obviously going to be Conor McGregor and his counter-punching abilities, right? This is just the ticket that Conor McGregor has to beating Cerrone and beating him very convincingly. We have seen that Cerrone, his boxing is going to be pretty telegraphed, right? He has a pretty short range. He doesn't really go ahead and cover a huge deal of distance. He's just a very, boxed up fighter. And if he wants to go ahead and cover a lot of distance, he tends to lunge into shots. And if he lunges in at the wrong moment and Conor's already on his way to counter him, that is just the end of that fight. So if Conor can exploit these openings, it is really his fight to win. But is it really his fight to win? As I will be making another video where I talk about Cerrone's reasons to beating Conor McGregor. To stay notified for that one, be sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on all notifications, so that way you won't be missing that video. However, as I always like to say, in the end, only time will tell what will truly happen. For now, I have been KENAN from kenanK TV, signing off. Later.